My name is Aurora Bennett. I am 33 years old, and I work as a financial analyst living in Seattle. For the past 10 years, I have lived tightly, giving up vacations, parties, even my own personal dreams, all to pursue a single goal, to have a little house in my name. And then, right at my sister's engagement party, while everyone was raising glasses and sweet music played in the background, my phone buzzed. An email from the bank. My entire savings account had been drained. Nearly $120,000 vanished in a single afternoon. I opened the detailed statement. The person who made the transaction was me, but I had never signed any authorization. I stood frozen between the lights and the laughter. Meanwhile, Clarissa, my sister, stood on stage showing off her sparkling engagement ring to the crowd and smiling brightly. Thanks to Mom and my sister for helping make my dream come true. Have you ever been stabbed in the back by your own family? Sacrificed everything only to be treated like a bottomless wallet? If you've also suffered silent betrayal from your own family, leave a comment below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe so I have the motivation to keep telling this story. Because what happened next? You won't believe it. I left the party in silence, my high heels striking the cold marble in hollow beats. My back was straight, but inside, every vein felt like it was boiling. The applause and laughter still echoed behind me like a warped musical, reminding me that the whole world was applauding a performance in which I was the victim and the perpetrator was being hailed like a Disney princess. When I got into the car, my hands were still shaking. I opened the bank email again and stared at the final line. Withdrawal completed, authenticated signature, Aurora Bennett. All the information matched. The IP address was from my mother's house. The account was drained through an old authorization file I had set up almost 10 years ago back when I was a student, and didn't understand the consequences of being named on a joint account with my mother. And then, like a gust of wind blowing back through memory, everything came rushing at me. I am the eldest of two sisters. My father, Thomas, died when I was 17 in a workplace accident. Back then, Clarissa was only 10. My mother, Valerie, went from being a homemaker to the family's apparent pillar. At least, on paper. The truth is, I started working part-time just 2 weeks after my father's funeral. I went to school and washed dishes at a diner near campus. There were nights I came home close to midnight and still had to help my mother balance the ledgers because she would always say, "My head hurts looking at numbers." Clarissa grew up like a flower in a glass case. My mother always told me, "You study well, you're smart, but Clarissa is different. She needs to be groomed, so she'll have a chance to change her life later." Change her life. That phrase my mother repeated for years. She put Clarissa in dance class, voice lessons, catwalk training. When I applied to the state university, my mother sighed, "Why don't you pick something easier so you can help me around the house?" But when Clarissa decided to study acting at an expensive private academy, my mother pulled every string to secure a scholarship. The remaining tuition? I covered it. Every month I sent money from my part-time job at the library and later from my first job at the bank into an account in my mother's name, something I thought of as the family fund. I never told anyone about it. I thought if I didn't speak up, it meant I was strong. But now, looking at the empty account, I realized I had been used. Not once, but my whole life. I still remember clearly when I was 25, the first time I got a full-time job after earning my master's in finance. On my first paycheck, I bought a decent pair of shoes and sent a sizable amount home to fix the leaking roof. But instead of fixing it, my mother took Clarissa to get a rhinoplasty. When I found out, my mother just said, "She's insecure. With good looks, she'll have a future. You're her sister, don't you understand?" I understood. I understood that in my mother's eyes, Clarissa was the gateway to fame. The ticket so that one day she could sit on a talk show and say, "I am Clarissa's mother, a model, actress, influencer." And me? I was only the quiet backdrop, the endless source of money to make their dream come true. I had paid for Clarissa's luxury Los Angeles apartment for 6 months because she needed a nice place to take photos for social media. I covered the student loan she abandoned after discovering her real passion wasn't school but art. I paid nearly half of a cosmetic surgery bill after my mother cried and said, "Clarissa wants a fresh start." Whenever I hesitated, my mother pressed the softest point. "Love," she would say in a tired voice. "You're strong. You have a career. You can endure it. I only have 2 children. If you don't help her, who will?" Clarissa never thanked me. She only had one familiar line. "You're the only one I trust." I was naive enough to believe I was preserving a family. But in truth, I was keeping a machine of exploitation running smoothly. I used to think if I worked hard, if I endured enough, everything would be fine. That one day Clarissa would succeed and I could lift my head with pride, knowing I had helped build it. But today, when she stood on stage, held out her hand to show a glittering diamond ring, and casually said, "Thanks to Mom and my sister for helping make my dream come true," without so much as glancing my way, I realized I did not exist in that dream. I was only the quiet silhouette behind them, the arm reaching into the dark to pull them toward the light, while I was left behind. I didn't cry. But the humiliation and anger made my chest ache, because I knew this couldn't be a simple mistake. Withdrawing money from an account required identification codes, bank confirmations, and authenticated electronic signatures. Someone had used my information, and no one else but my mother had access to that old account, the one I once trusted as the family support channel, but which had become a cruel blade severing my efforts over a decade. I don't know how long I sat in the car. Darkness outside thickened while my mind went blank. Then my phone buzzed again. It was Clarissa. A single-line message. "Can you send another $5,000 before the weekend? The deposit for a designer wedding dress is more than I thought." I stared at the text, then turned off the screen. I did not swallow my anger. I did not tell myself they didn't mean to. I stopped making excuses for anyone. I took a slow breath, opened my laptop, and began typing the first lines of an email to my lawyer. Because if my family could steal my life with a few clicks, it was time I learned how to press buttons too. But to end things, and to begin, I never thought I would have to sit opposite a financial statement like it was a DNA test, where each number looked like evidence accusing my own blood relatives. I spent the whole next day in my small apartment with the curtains drawn, sitting on the floor surrounded by a stack of papers, contracts, receipts, and bank notices. My laptop displayed the most recent transactions, large transfers, cash withdrawal slips, odd payments I had never made. They all bore my name, my signature, and originated from accounts in my name. I pulled up the savings account file at the National Bank, the account I opened nearly 10 years ago to save for a house. Recently, I had consolidated my savings about $120,000 into that account, so I would qualify to buy a condo I'd had my eye on in Bellevue. But now the account was empty. Not because of a hack, not because of a system error. Someone had used my information to sign an authorization to withdraw the entire balance. And after calling to verify with the bank, I went numb when the customer service representative said, "A copy of the power of attorney contract was signed directly at our branch, presented by Mrs. Valerie Bennett with her identification, along with a copy of Aurora Bennett's driver's license with photo." I froze. A copy of a driver's license, with my photo. It didn't take long to understand what had happened. My mother, the same woman who had rifled through my wallet countless times when I still lived at home, the same one who once asked for my computer password to help pay bills. When I was busy at work, she could easily have taken my photo, my information, my documents. I called the branch back and demanded they send me a copy of the signed power of attorney. Less than 3 hours later, a PDF appeared in my inbox. I zoomed in on the signature at the bottom, and I let out a bitter breath. The strokes were shaky, slanted, left not my handwriting, yet hauntingly similar. Because it was my mother who forged it. She had signed my name on school papers for me back when I was too busy working part-time. I once thought that was her way of helping. Now I realized it had been practice all along. It didn't stop there. I opened my inbox. A string of emails from the commercial bank I'd used back in college. One brand new notification that had just arrived that morning. A personal loan of $82,000 under the name of Aurora Bennett has just been dispersed to pay Golden Oak Events. My heart clenched. Golden Oak Events, the very company that had hosted Clarissa's engagement party yesterday. White roses everywhere, golden lights, satin tablecloths, and a quartet of violins playing on request. I had assumed she'd secured some kind of sponsorship or promotion deal. I never imagined I was the one footing the bill. My hands shook as I pressed call. I'm sorry. I never signed any loan contract. I never authorized this disbursement. The bank employee hesitated. Miss Bennett, the file was completed under your name, with a signature, an email consent, and a one-time password confirmation sent to the phone number ending in 8145. I went cold. 8145, the old number I once used when I still lived with my mother and Clarissa. I had canceled it 2 years ago after switching to a business line. I thought that number was gone. I was wrong. I pulled up my digital records, searched through credit card applications, loan contracts, guarantor forms. At least 3 other accounts in my name had been opened using that old phone number and a backup email I once shared with my mother. Most of them were active within the past 2 years. I had no idea they even existed. I sat frozen in my chair as pale afternoon. Sunlight streamed weakly through the curtains. I had been deceived, not by strangers, but by my own mother. The woman I once trusted enough to hand over my bank PIN during my first working years. The same woman who held my hand and said, "You kids are all I have." I thought of the day my father passed. The house had been so unbearably silent. My mother sat at the window, face hollow. Clarissa, just a small child then, had fallen asleep clutching her teddy bear. I had told myself, be strong, carry the weight. Maybe from that very moment, I had believed sacrifice was duty that I wasn't allowed to complain. But now, staring at a 6-figure debt I never signed for, I finally understood. Unconditional sacrifice doesn't teach gratitude. It teaches entitlement. And from entitlement comes intrusion. And from intrusion comes theft. I opened my phone, scrolled to my mother's name. My thumb hovered. No call, no text. Instead, I snapped photos of every document. I recorded my call, with the bank. Then I opened my email and typed a subject line, request for urgent legal assistance, suspected identity fraud and misappropriation of assets. I would not stay silent, and I would never lend my name to anyone again. I didn't drive straight home after sending the email to my lawyer. I stopped in front of a familiar house, the white one with blue trim where I had grown up, the only place I once called home. The front door still had chipped paint at the corner, where Clarissa had crashed her bike years ago and cried all afternoon. I climbed the steps without ringing. My mother always left the door unlocked whenever guests came for parties or family gatherings. Laughter spilled from the kitchen. The smell of almond cookies drifted in the air. They were still celebrating after yesterday's engagement, as though nothing had happened. I stepped inside, standing quietly in the doorway. No one noticed until I shut the door behind me. "Oh, Aurora!" My mother's voice rang from the dining table. "You came after all, I thought you were busy." I looked around. Clarissa sat cross-legged on the sofa, scrolling on her phone, the diamond ring on her finger catching the light. I kept my tone steady. "We need to talk, alone." Clarissa didn't bother looking up. "If it's about money, don't start. I already put a deposit down for the dress. It's non-refundable." I turned to my mother. "I want to ask you one thing. Did you use my name to take out a loan? Did you take my savings?" My mother set her glass down, pausing for a split second. "Aurora," I thought we agreed. "I only borrowed it temporarily. Your sister needs a proper wedding. You wouldn't want her embarrassed, would you? That was the money I saved to buy a home, and I never gave anyone permission to touch it." Clarissa rose, arms folded. "You don't even have a house. You're still single, no kids, nothing but work. Mom's right, you have your career. I don't need a wedding." "I do." I turned to her. "Do you really think one lavish wedding replaces the future I've spent 10 years building?" Clarissa shrugged. That's a choice. I choose my life. You chose to be the one in the background. Don't blame anyone else. I bit back words I might regret. But my mother spoke again, her voice soft as though soothing a sulking child. Women in the family shouldn't be selfish with their blood. Clarissa is your sister. You're her elder. A wedding only comes once. You make money well, you can always save again. I'm not this family's backup wallet, I said, low but firm. I can't be the one carrying everything just because I endure more, Clarissa scoffed. You're exaggerating. Acting like you're poor. I clenched my fists. I paid your tuition 3 times after you dropped out. I funded your acting lessons, your voice training, even your cosmetic procedures, though Mom said, just this. Once. Have you ever truly stood on your own? Clarissa's face hardened. Don't throw that in my face like you're my mother. I never asked you. Mom did. I turned to my mother. And you forged my signature to take money. Do you realize that's a crime? She looked at me as if I had just insulted some sacred trust. I did this for the family. I didn't take it for myself. Clarissa needed it. And you didn't lose anything. When I'm gone one day, everything will be yours anyway. I laughed, a hollow, dry laugh. One day? You're talking about one day, while right now I'm drowning in debt from expenses I was never even asked about? That one day is far away, Mom. But the consequences? I'm carrying them every single day. Clarissa folded her arms. If you want your money back, just say it. Don't act like you're some holy victim. I stared at her for a long moment. Then I opened my bag, pulled out a stack of documents, and placed them on the table. These are the bank statements, detailing withdrawals from accounts under my name. Here are the loan contracts with forged signatures. And this is a recording of the call confirming you used my documents to guarantee the loan. Clarissa's face drained of color. My mother reached out toward the papers, but I pulled them back. I didn't come here for an apology or to ask for anything back. I came to make sure you both know I know everything, and I will not let it continue. What are you going to do? My mother asked, eyes beginning to glisten. I'm going to do what's necessary to protect myself, Clarissa sneered. You're going to sue Mom? You think the court will side with you? What will the family say? I looked at her for a moment before replying, the family isn't the one paying back $82,000, and I don't need them on my side. I just need to stand on my own. I picked up the documents. As for these, all the evidence has already been sent out. Don't text me, don't call, don't come find me unless it's to take responsibility. I turned and walked away. My mother called after me, her voice breaking. Aurora, you can't do this. We're family. I stopped at the doorway, not looking back. Exactly because we're family, I gave you too many chances. I opened the door and stepped outside. Behind me, the wind rustled through the trees. The scent of almond cookies still hung in the air, but now it stirred nothing warm, only a sweet coating over rot, and I was ready to strip it away. I left my mother's house like someone just stumbling out of a storm that refused to calm. Inside me was a silent surge, fierce yet quiet. I didn't scream, didn't break things, didn't cry. Maybe because the tears had long since dried after all these years. Back in my apartment, I sat motionless before the computer screen, emails glowing unread. I didn't know how long I stayed that way until the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole, a tall man with brown hair, wearing a plaid shirt under a black jacket, holding a paper bag. I hesitated before opening the door. He lifted his gaze, blue eyes tinged with hesitation. Hello, Aurora. He gave a small nod. I'm Tyler. Do you remember me? It took me a second to connect the face to the name. Tyler, Clarissa's ex-boyfriend. The only man I'd ever seen treat her with genuine kindness without expecting anything in return. The one who once came to our house with a small bouquet and an awkward voice. And the one she dumped mercilessly after a party simply because he couldn't tell the difference between Italian and French wine. I nodded. How did you know I live here? Tyler raised a hand, as if to calm my guard. Don't worry, nothing shady. I still had your old address from when I dated Clarissa, and I asked around a bit from a mutual. Friend, another engineer at your old company. Just a few searches. I stayed silent, not yet inviting him in. I know you don't owe me anything, Tyler continued, but there's something you need to know, and I think only you can stop it. I exhaled, stepped aside. Come in. We sat at the dining table. Tyler placed the paper bag down, pulling out a stack of printed documents. My eyes caught the logo of an international fashion brand, Hathaway and Jules, a company making headlines for its campaign with big youth icons. I frowned. What does Clarissa have to do with this brand? Tyler opened his laptop, tapped a few keys, then turned the screen toward me. A presentation slide appeared, title, Nomination for Northwest U.S. Regional Brand Ambassador, Clarissa Bennett. Below was a photo of Clarissa in a turtleneck coat, perfect studio lighting, flawless airbrushed face. The summary profile made my chest tighten. Education, Bachelor of Finance, Southern Washington University, credibility endorsement, personally trained in personal finance by expert Aurora Bennett, senior advisor at Paragon Financial Group Achievement, co-founder of Empower Her Financial Education Fund for Young Women. I reread it 3 times, not believing my eyes. What is this? Tyler nodded, voice dropping. Clarissa fabricated an entire profile to submit for the ambassador program. She claimed you were her financial mentor, that you personally guided her in financial management, investments, even lending your name to vouch for her credibility before the review board. I only found out because an old friend in IT forwarded me this deck. He saw your name and knew it wasn't real. My fists clenched. She dared do this? That's not all. Tyler slid more prints across. I traced her online activity. She's been using an email address ending in at aurorabennettfinance.com to send files. The site looks professional, with a logo and a hotline number, but I'm betting it's just a burner phone. I cut him off with a hand. You're saying Clarissa created an entire fake version of me to legitimize her application? Exactly. I leaned back in my chair, feeling a hollow pit in my chest. Clarissa wasn't just borrowing my name quietly anymore. She was openly building a counterfeit financial identity based on me. And if this went further, legal, tax, even corporate fraud charges could land squarely on me. Tyler was silent for a moment, then spoke carefully. But if you don't act soon, it won't just hurt you. They could use your identity to forge documents, sign contracts, even raise capital. Once money moves, the fallout could be enormous. I nodded. You're right. He handed me a USB drive. This contains the technical evidence, IPs, metadata, server backups from the fashion brand. I got permission from the source, but I'll keep their identity protected. You can use it to defend yourself. I took the drive. Thank you. I honestly never thought I'd get something like this from you. Tyler smiled faintly. I'm not doing it for Clarissa. I'm doing it for you. I once saw you eat a boxed meal at a family party just so your mom and sister could have the better plates. You didn't say a word, but even outsiders could see you were the one holding that family together. Until they were the ones who broke you. I didn't answer right away. I just looked at him, a sting in my chest. Not from regret, but because sometimes the people you least expect are the ones who stand with you when no one else will. Tyler. My voice softened. If you hadn't come today, I wouldn't have realized just how dangerous a line I was standing on. He shrugged. I just figured if I knew and kept quiet, I'd be no better than them. We sat in silence for a while. Then I pulled out my phone, opened my Made It, contacts, and deleted Clarissa from my favorites. I didn't feel guilty. I looked at Tyler. Are you free on Monday? Yes. Why? I need someone to come with me to the lawyer's office. Looks like I have more to prepare for than I thought. Tyler nodded, gaze steady. I'll go. I tightened my grip on the USB. This time, no one would use my name without paying for it. I don't remember the last time I slept. After meeting Tyler, we plunged into days with barely any rest. I took 3 days off work, claiming an internal audit, but in truth I sat in the living room surrounded by my laptop, printer, external hard drive, and hundreds of files Tyler arranged chronologically. He worked like a detective solving a criminal case, not just helping his ex-girlfriend's sister unravel financial fraud. On the morning of the second day, I received a large envelope from the IRS. The bold header read, Request for Asset and Income Verification, Case File, 447A. I blinked, a chill spreading through me. Tyler glanced up from his screen. What is it? I held up the letter. They found something. Apparently, income filings under my name don't add up. He reached out. Let me see. I handed it to him. Tyler skimmed quickly, eyes halting at the middle. They suspect you're tied to properties used as collateral for loans across 3 banks. Total assets valued over $1.2 million, but you only reported an average annual income of about $130,000. The discrepancy raised flags. I nodded, mouth dry. I've never mortgaged any property. I don't own anything besides the apartment I rent. Tyler pulled up a spreadsheet. Aurora, there's something you need to know right now. I wasn't going to say until I was sure, but I just confirmed it through a friend in property valuation. I turned to him. Your father's house, he said slowly. It's still in your name. After he passed, the will explicitly transferred ownership to you. But instead of registering it officially in the land records, your mother kept all the original documents and held power of attorney on your behalf. The ground seemed to drop beneath me. She used that authority to mortgage the house 3 times, Tyler continued. First 5 years ago, a $75,000 loan. Then another for $120,000. And most recently, nearly $180,000. Altogether, about $375,000, principal and interest, all under your name. She signed the contracts with forged powers of attorney. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the air was crisp. Late autumn in Seattle always carried a kind of nameless gloom. I pressed my forehead against the cool glass, my chest suddenly hollow in a way I couldn't describe. Could it be that all these years, everything I worked so hard to build, was only for them to drain it dry? I whispered, not turning around. Tyler didn't answer right away. But I heard the sound of him stacking files, the keyboard going still, his footsteps approaching. It's not on you, he said. You weren't wrong to trust them. They were wrong for abusing that trust. I turned, looking straight into his eyes. They didn't just abuse it, they destroyed it. Clarissa used my name to build a fake profile. My mother used my identity to shuffle money around everywhere. I haven't just lost money. I could lose my credibility, my career, if this comes out the wrong way. Tyler nodded. And that's why I'm here. Not to pity you, but to help you take it all back. I sat down again, pulled out my phone, and logged into an old personal email account I once shared with my mother during my early working years. I had forgotten it existed ever since I switched all correspondence to my business account 3 years ago. But now, there it was, still active. The inbox was full. Emails from banks, financial firms, credit institutions. Many with subject lines like, Loan Guarantee Confirmation, Thank you for trusting Hathaway Mortgage, Identity Verification for Aurora Bennett. I opened each one, screenshot them, downloaded attachments. Every line of data cut like a knife. They had been doing this to me for years, without my knowledge. There was even a thank you letter from a charity Clarissa had once bragged about on Instagram, clearly stating, fund established from contributions under the names of Aurora Bennett and Clarissa Bennett. A chill swept over. Me, Tyler, I said, my voice steady though quiet. We'll need a lawyer who specializes in financial fraud, a legal expert in property rights, and a personal tax advisor. I can't handle this alone anymore. He nodded. I've already reached out to someone named Margaret Chen, used to work at a big law firm in Boston. She's handled family financial abuse cases before. If you agree, I'll set up a meeting. I gave a slow nod. Do it, as soon as possible. That night, I didn't sleep. Tyler stayed too, sitting at the opposite desk. The glow from our monitors lit both our faces. No words exchanged, but I felt it clearly. I wasn't alone anymore. I began taking notes. I built a timeline of every suspicious event, organization names, amounts, transaction dates, recipients, digital evidence, everything categorized, printed, prepared for submission to the right authorities. I wasn't doing this for revenge. I was doing it to stop them from doing it again. Whether to me, or to anyone else, any daughter, any sister, any so-called pillar of a family too lazy to stand on its own. Wind hissed softly against the window. I shivered, pulling the shawl tighter around my shoulders, and I kept typing. The keys clicked steadily, like the heartbeat of someone who had finally decided to rise after being pushed down for far too long. That afternoon, I wore a simple black turtleneck dress, my hair tied back neatly. No heavy makeup, no extravagant jewelry. I didn't want to show up as someone competing or posturing, but simply as myself, Aurora Bennett, the woman who had silently paid for every dream her family ever had, now here to end the performance. The Avalon Hotel lobby in downtown Seattle was staged like a major product launch. Soft white lights spilled across the wide hall. Rows of white roses lined the corridor. Guest chairs faced a stage with a giant LED screen overhead. On it gleamed the logo of Hathaway and Jewels, alongside the shimmering words, Regional Ambassador Signing Ceremony, Clarissa Bennett. Clarissa stood near the stage, in a pearl white gown, her face flawless down to the smallest detail. She posed for photos, waved at the press. My mother was there too, in a cream suit, beaming with pride as though she were the one about to be honored. I slipped in unnoticed at first. Only when Clarissa happened to turn, and our eyes met did her smile falter for a fraction of a second. But she quickly turned back to the cameras, smiling and waving as if she hadn't seen me at all. Tyler waited near the back. He nodded when I reached him and handed me a large envelope. The USB's inside, he murmured. All the evidence statements, mortgage contracts, and the recording. I nodded. And the media lead? I spoke to her. She agreed to open the floor for questions right after the signing. I gripped the envelope tighter, my gaze fixed on the stage. I wasn't afraid. The only thing I felt was clarity. Everything I had given, accepted, carried, today would be returned, in the fairest way possible. The ceremony began a few minutes later. Hathaway and Jewel's marketing director took the stage, gave thanks, introduced the new campaign. Then he invited Clarissa up to sign the contract. The room erupted in applause. Clarissa lifted the pen, turned toward the cameras, flashing her professional smile. But before the tip touched the page, I walked forward, my voice rising just enough to carry. Excuse me, I have something to announce before the signing proceeds. Every eye turned to me. Clarissa froze. My mother shot to her feet, her face pale. The media coordinator hesitated, then spoke into the mic. Please, everyone stay calm. It seems Miss Aurora Bennett has something to say. I stepped onto the stage, facing Clarissa. I'm Aurora Bennett, the one Clarissa referenced throughout her ambassador profile. I turned to the company reps. I hold in my hand all the evidence proving this application is fraudulent. Whispers rippled through the crowd. I pulled the USB from the envelope, handed it to a technician. I request that you display the recordings and documents immediately. The screen lit up behind us. A recording played, my mother's voice clear, sharp. Just sign Aurora's name, she'll never dare sue. She's soft-hearted, like always. Don't worry. The room went dead silent, as if someone had cut the power. Then came images of mortgage papers, loan contracts all under my name, with forged signatures, and the old email address used to verify transactions. Clarissa stepped back, lips pressed tight. My mother's face drained, her hand shaking so badly she dropped her purse. I turned to the Hathaway and Jewels executive. Clarissa used my identity, faked her degree, fabricated a charity, and lied about her entire financial background to secure this position. I trust your company doesn't want someone like that as its representative. He was silent for several seconds, then lifted the mic, his voice firm. This signing is officially postponed. We will need to verify all information. Chairs scraped. Cameras snapped off. Reporters hurried out, scribbling my name. Clarissa stared at me, eyes red. You planned this from the start, didn't you? She whispered, as if I were the betrayer. No, I answered. I only gave you back exactly what you did. Clarissa bolted from the hall, my mother rushing after, heels clattering across marble. I stood there a long moment, exhaling heavy breaths in the now thinning room. Tyler came to my side, gently touching my shoulder. You all right? I nodded. I've never felt more real. I didn't know what Clarissa would try tomorrow, or how my mother would spin it next. But that afternoon, I reclaimed my name not with rage, but with truth. And truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to arrive at the right moment. I walked home from the press event with my feet weighted to the ground. Not from fatigue, but from the gravity of each steps I'd once used to sidestep, to endure, to avoid hurting others. Now they were steps opening the last door to the downfall of those who once called me family. About an hour after I got home, my phone buzzed nonstop. Messages from Clarissa, from my mother, from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. Some scolded, some lectured, some threatened. Outsiders will never understand family matters. I simply set my phone to silent, sat at the dining table, and opened my laptop. Tyler was already there, pulling up charts tracing manipulated cash flows from the past 5 years. It's begun, he said softly, sliding a new PDF toward me. The IRS just sent another notice. They're requesting a full reconciliation of your financial reports and any assets tied to accounts under your name, with a direct interview scheduled within 7 days. I nodded, eyes still fixed on the screen. The Federal Credit Bureau also confirmed my mother's accounts have been frozen temporarily due to signs of identity abuse and forged signatures. Tyler sipped his coffee, his voice dropping. Are you sure you're ready? Once you submit everything to financial crimes, there's no going back. I looked at him, my hand resting on the carefully sorted files. I'm not doing this out of anger anymore, Tyler. I'm doing it because it's right. I tried to preserve a family that chose, time after time, to break me instead. He didn't say anything, just placed his hand on my shoulder, a quiet squeeze, but enough to remind me I wasn't alone. The next day, I walked into the office of the Federal Financial Crimes Investigation Bureau carrying 2 suitcases full of evidence. The investigator, Monica Jensen, a woman in her early 50s with a firm face and sharp eyes, listened to my entire account without interrupting. When I finished, she simply said, "You're the 4th person this month to report financial abuse by immediate family, but very few come this far." I pressed my lips together. Because we're always taught that family is meant to be forgiven, right? Monica didn't smile. She opened her laptop and began typing. I don't judge morality, but legally speaking, the person whose name is on the dash assets holds the right of control. And if their identity has been forged, they also hold the responsibility to defend themselves. 3 days later, I received the news. My father's house, the home I grew up in, the place that once was my sanctuary, was officially seized for investigation. On the 4th day, both my mother's and Clarissa's accounts were frozen simultaneously under an emergency order from the federal court. The credit system flagged suspicious cross-channel transactions, with signs of money laundering and identity fraud. On the 5th day, Clarissa was served a subpoena from the Trade Fraud Investigation Agency. Hathaway and Jules officially announced the suspension of her ambassador contract, pending an ethics review. That afternoon, as I was organizing files on my desk, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find my mother standing there. She looked thinner than usual, her hair tied back but messy on top as if after a fight. She carried no purse, just an expression, ready to erupt. "Can we talk for a moment?" she asked, her voice hoarse. I didn't invite her in. I stepped into the hallway, shutting the door behind me. "What do you want to say?" She raised her hands, almost pleading. "You're making this bigger than it has to be, Aurora. Why can't you just let it go? We're family. I'm your mother." I clenched my fists. "You forged my identity to borrow money. You signed off on credit transactions without my consent. You put me at risk of violating federal law. This is no longer just family business. She cut me off. You're the only one who can save Clarissa. She's falling apart. She hasn't eaten since that day. She says you ruined her life. I drew in a slow breath, forcing calm. Clarissa ruined her own life, Mom. I only did what I had to protect what little was left after you both tried to swallow it whole. My mother's eyes darkened. She was no longer teary like when she first arrived. Her voice turned sharp. You're cruel. I raised you, gave you an education, and this is how you repay me by sending me to prison? I gave a bitter laugh. You didn't give me an education. I worked, I applied for scholarships, I paid off every student loan myself. And I'm not sending anyone to prison. You did that with your own actions. For a moment, she faltered. Then her gaze shifted from begging to threatening. I'll tell everyone. I'll say you're ungrateful, that you betrayed your own family just to gain attention. No one will take your side. I held her eyes. I don't need anyone to take my side, Mom, as long as the truth does. She gripped her bag strap so tightly it looked like she might rip it. Then she turned and walked away, her steps heavy, each one dragging a piece of her pride down with it. I stood in the hall a long time, listening to the wind seeping through the end window. No triumph. No regret. Just a strange, unmistakable relief. I had finally broken the cycle I had endured my entire life. A week after that last meeting with my mother, I woke early to the shrill, relentless ringing of my phone. Notifications flooded my screen. The moment I opened the app, I knew something was wrong. A YouTube link had been sent from countless unknown numbers, along with emotional captions. Can't believe you'd do this to your own family. Poor Clarissa. She didn't deserve this. You should be ashamed. I tapped the link. Clarissa's face filled the screen. She sat before the camera in my mother's familiar living room, her makeup minimal, her tears streaking it into a pitiful mess. Her voice cracked from the very first line. Hi everyone. Today, I don't want to talk about myself. I just want one thing. Please help my mom escape this nightmare. My sister, the one I always loved and admired, has decided to take everything to court. For money, for reputation. And now, my mom is facing criminal charges. She might go to prison. She paused, tears spilling. Soft piano music swelled under her words, like the video had been carefully produced. I don't want to lose my mom. I don't know what else to do but beg for your help. If you can, please donate through the link below to help cover her legal fees. I will never forget your kindness. At the end, she bowed, sobbing, the camera lingering on her tear-streaked face. I stared at my phone screen for nearly 2 minutes after it ended. I wasn't angry, but I felt cold. The comments surged like a flood. Some cursed me, some called me heartless, cold-blooded. A few defended me, but most were swept up by raw emotion and venomous words. Clarissa knew exactly what she was doing. I left the bedroom and walked into the kitchen. Tyler had already brewed coffee, setting a mug on the wooden table by my laptop. He sat quietly, waiting for me to speak. I watched the video, I said softly. So did I, Tyler replied. And I already reported that donation link to our legal team. It's misleading, and it reeks of community fraud. I nodded. She built a narrative deep enough to make people forget she was the one who forged documents, using my name to borrow hundreds of thousands of dollars. Tyler sat beside me, eyes steady on mine. Are you okay? I drew in a deep breath. No one's ever really prepared to be condemned by the whole world, Tyler, even when they don't know the facts. Even when the truth is right here in front of me, it still feels like I'm the one in the wrong. He squeezed my hand gently. But you're not wrong. You're breaking a cycle of abuse that's centered on you for years. What Clarissa's doing now is just her last attempt to cling to the victim role she created for herself. I gave a wry smile. And I'm the villain for daring to refuse silence. The strongest, most righteous villain I've ever met. We sat quietly for a while. I could hear the tick of the wall clock, each second pressing me closer toward the truth. That afternoon, I went to meet attorney Margaret Chen. Margaret, a Chinese-American woman in her early 60s, had served as lead counsel in many family financial abuse cases. She listened intently, without interrupting, without excess emotion. When I finished, she leafed through the files carefully. "You've already done the hardest part, Aurora," she said after a few moments. "You didn't run, you didn't hide, and you didn't try to bargain it away. You stood up. Now, we'll turn that into legal outcomes." I nodded. "I want to file formal charges. Identity theft, asset misappropriation, abuse of power of attorney, and if the grounds are strong enough, even community fraud tied to that donation campaign." "We have solid evidence," Margaret replied. "But I must warn you, this trial may go public. Your family will fight back. They'll throw accusations. There will be wounds you can't avoid." I tightened my grip on my bag, meeting her eyes. "I've spent my whole life silent out of fear of hurting others. Now, I just want to live true to myself even if it hurts more." She nodded, respect flickering in her gaze. "Then we begin." On my way home, I received another message. Not from Clarissa, but from an old college friend. "Are you okay? I saw the video, but I also remember all those times you skipped class to work double shifts to cover Clarissa's tuition. Maybe no one says it, but plenty of us know what you endured." I didn't reply. But something softened in me. Not everyone is blinded by scripted tears. And not everyone stays silent when the truth is being twisted. When I got home, Tyler was on the balcony. The November Seattle air was chilly, but not freezing. He turned, handing me a mug of hot cocoa. "The court scheduled a preliminary hearing in 10 days, he said. "Chen just texted me. All filings are in." I held the mug, close, warmth seeping into my palms. Looking out at the sky fading into gray, wind whispering through the trees, I knew the real storm still lay ahead. But this time, I wouldn't back down. I wouldn't bow my head. I wouldn't close my eyes and let it slide. Courtroom 4 of the Seattle Federal Courthouse that morning was terrifyingly still. No press cameras flashing, no live streams, no glitz like the events Clarissa once basked in. Here, everything was plain, blunt, and uncompromising. I sat in the front row, hands resting on my lap, palms clammy despite my composed exterior. Tyler was behind me, his posture straight, gaze unwavering. Attorney Margaret Chen sat to my right, carefully arranging our thick file of evidence, each page a truth that could not be denied. Judge Grayson entered at exactly 8:30, gavel striking lightly on the wooden desk. The criminal hearing for charges of document forgery, asset misappropriation, abuse of power of attorney, and financial fraud defendants Valerie Bennett and Clarissa Bennett will now begin. Clarissa sat at the defendant's table, wearing an oversized gray suit. Her face had light makeup, but it couldn't hide her exhaustion. The arrogance she once carried in her gaze was gone. She only looked down, her hands clasped tightly. My mother sat beside her, hair tied neatly back, her face solemn to the point of coldness, as if she had already resigned herself to everything. The prosecutor laid out the entire case with clarity. How Valerie had used my identity to open multiple credit accounts, mortgage the inherited house, and sign bank loan contracts with forged signatures. She emphasized that I had no knowledge of it and never gave consent. Then came the details about Clarissa, her use of my name to fabricate records, leveraging my credibility and professional background to impersonate me in various commercial contracts. When attorney Margaret was invited to present the victim impact statement, she looked at me and gave a small nod. I rose, walked to the witness stand. The court called for order as I began to speak. "My name is Aurora Bennett. I am not just a victim in this case. I am a sister, a daughter, someone who once believed that if I endured long enough, if I sacrificed enough, my family would not fall apart. I used my very first paycheck to pay my sister's tuition. I once took leave from work mid-semester to drive my mother to the hospital. I chose not to buy my own home because I thought the house my father left behind would be a place where the three of us could live together and preserve our bond. But little by little, I was pushed out of that home. Not with words, but by the quiet stripping away of trust. I wasn't asked when my savings were taken. I wasn't warned when my name was signed onto loans I had never seen. I wasn't given an apology, not even when I discovered that my own family had turned my identity into a tool for their ambitions. The cruelest part isn't losing money. It's realizing they did it while still calling me family. No one spoke. I glanced at Clarissa. She lifted her eyes for only a moment, red and watery, but there was no apology in them. I once tried to hide everything, I continued, because I was afraid of my mother going to prison, afraid of my sister being condemned by society. But I realized, if I kept silent, I would be complicit in their wrongdoing. And I cannot live with that. I paused. The air thickened, heavy as black velvet draped over the room. I am not here for revenge. I am here to reclaim the right to be myself. No one deserves to have their trust abused in the very place they call home. I returned to my seat. Heart weighed down, but certain I had said enough. Judge Grayson bent over his notes, then lifted his head, voice steady and firm. After reviewing all evidence, the victim impact statement, and testimonies from all parties, the court concludes as follows. Valerie Bennett found guilty of forging federal documents, identity abuse, and misappropriation of personal assets exceeding $350,000. Although she has no prior record, the seriousness and duration of the offenses demand accountability. The court sentences her to 6 years of suspended prison time, 3 years of federal probation, and restitution of $100,000 to the victim. Clarissa Bennett found guilty of using falsified information to sign commercial contracts, damaging both reputation and assets, and engaging in fraudulent solicitation through misleading donation campaigns. The court sentences her to 3 years in federal prison, minimum security, with no bail. Clarissa broke down, sobbing into the table. My mother sat frozen, face drained of expression. Neither of them looked at me again. As I stepped out of the courtroom, the Seattle sky seemed just a little brighter, though the clouds still hung thick and the wind still carried the salty chill of late autumn. Tyler walked beside me, saying nothing. He didn't need to. His presence, quiet, steady, meant more to me than any words. That afternoon, social media erupted. Clarissa was no longer praised as a symbol of resilience. Posts surfaced from old acquaintances, former teachers, and past coworkers, each revealing stories I had never heard. How she borrowed money and never repaid. How she exploited charity titles to solicit free products from small brands. For the first time, the real portrait of my sister emerged. No filters, no studio lights, no background piano beneath her weeping videos. No one left that courtroom unchanged. But the one thing I did not lose was the truth. And the truth saved me. The new house in the suburbs of Bellevue was handed over to me on a gentle spring morning. The sky was clear blue, rows of cherry blossoms along the street bursting into pale pink blooms, petals falling across the walkway like a soft carpet. I stood at the gate, the brand new key in my palm, and it felt as if I held an entirely new beginning. The house wasn't large, but it was spacious enough to feel safe and free. Cream white paint, green roof tiles, a front yard with a small garden for flowers and herbs. I opened the door, the hinges whispering, and sunlight poured into a bright open space. The faint scent of fresh paint and wood mingled with the cherry blossoms outside, giving the air a rare, clean sweetness. I set my bag down on the kitchen counter and walked slowly through each room. Each space was empty, waiting to be filled with furniture and memories. I touched the walls as if to assure myself this place was truly mine, not tied to anyone else, untouched by hands that once stole everything I built. Tyler arrived at noon, carrying a bouquet of bright yellow tulips and a bottle of red wine. He smiled, set the flowers on the table, and wrapped his arms around me from behind. Congratulations, Aurora. This house, it suits you. Strong, bright, and full of life, just like you. I smiled softly, resting my head on his shoulder. I used to think I'd never have the courage to start over. But maybe it's finally time. We opened the wine, poured it into 2 crystal glasses I had just bought the day before. The taste was bold, slightly bitter, but warm as it slid down. Tyler lifted his glass. To freedom. And to the future you deserve. That evening, as the lights of my new home glowed, I opened my laptop to prepare for the National Conference on Personal Financial Safety and Family Financial Abuse. I had been invited as the keynote speaker. When I received the invitation letter, I sat stunned for a long while. They said my story, my fight, could inspire hundreds, even thousands of people trapped in the same invisible chains of family exploitation. The night before the conference, I barely slept. My mind replayed every moment I once let slide, papers I signed without reading, times I stayed silent, times I told myself, as long as the family stays intact. If I hadn't stood up, it would have gone on forever, and in the end, I would have lost myself completely. On the day of the conference, the hall was packed. Warm light spilled down on the stage, the microphone already waiting. As I walked out, applause echoed around the room. I drew in a long breath and began. My name is Aurora Bennett. I once believed that to keep a family together, I had to sacrifice everything. But then I realized, if sacrifice makes you a victim, it's no longer love, it's bondage. I shared pieces of my story, not dramatized, not bitter, just the truth. I spoke of the wounds left by being exploited by my own family, of the silence that drained me, and of the moment I chose to rise, even knowing storms lay ahead. When I finished, the entire hall rose in applause. I looked down at faces shining with tears, heads nodding in understanding. Some wiped their eyes, some gripped the hands of those beside them. I knew then I was no longer alone. Tyler waited backstage, pride glowing in his eyes. He took my hand firmly, saying nothing, but his warmth told me everything I needed. In the days that followed, I settled into the new house. I bought a large bookshelf for the living room, filling it with books I loved. I planted roses in the garden, sowed seeds of tomatoes, basil, and mint. Each morning, I opened the windows, breathing deeply as the scent of cherry blossoms rushed in. One afternoon, a letter arrived from Valerie. Her handwriting shook across the envelope. I hesitated, then opened it. Aurora, I know I've done wrong, and I don't deserve forgiveness. I've paid with my sentence and probation, but each day I regret. When my probation ends, I don't know where to go. Please, give me a chance to come back, to live with you, to make things right. I sat quietly for a long time after reading it. My chest tightened, part sympathy for the little sister who once held my hand on the way to school, part pain for the scars she left behind. Tyler touched my shoulder gently and said, "You don't have to decide now, and don't force yourself to open the door just because of the word family." I folded the letter and placed it in my desk drawer. I did not reply. I understood whether I forgive or not, that choice belongs to me. But letting Valerie back into the space I fought so hard to build? The answer was no. I owe no one anything anymore. Sitting in the quiet of my home, I realized everyone has their own way of facing family wounds. Some choose forgiveness. Some choose release. Some choose a new beginning. I chose to stand firm and hold on to my freedom. And what about you? If it were you, would you open the door to those who once hurt you, or would you keep walking without looking back? I'd love to hear your thoughts, because every answer is a precious perspective on how we learn to love ourselves. If my story resonates with you, follow this channel for more real-life stories about family, kinship, and the lessons behind them. Maybe, in the next story, you'll find a piece of yourself too.